Alright guys, I got my super OP build here. It's got the Athena laser gun, the whirl for the damage, and the blade here in case they get up close. I'm sure nothing will go wrong. Oh yeah, look at my massive damage, guys. I'm doing so good. If you want to stop dying every 2 seconds while doing 0 damage, scrimply follow these steps. So the first problem I see a lot of people doing is mixing weapons together of different varieties. This is very skull because, for example here, the Athena is a reload based gun that is best used at a long range. The Whirl, that is a heat based gun that is best used from medium to close range. And this is a melee blade that is best used at only close range and nothing else. Another reason why mixing weapons is bad is because you have to dedicate energy into modules for one certain type of weapon that will only buff that weapon instead of buffing both. So what I mean by this is that, like, say you only have enough energy to mount a reloading module but not enough to mount a heat-based module radiator. Your Athena on this build will get the reload buff, but your Whirl is left out and it doesn't get any improvements in terms of damage increase as if I mounted like a radiator. This radiator would only buff the Whirl, but it wouldn't buff the Athena. You would get much more DPS out of this build if you just had 2 Athenas instead, since you already have a reload module on this. Okay, now I want to talk about armoring your guns, because last thing you want on your build is a balled gun. So if I wanted to mount some whirls on this build, would the correct placement be here, here, or here? The correct answer is actually none of these. On most, if not all of your builds, you'd want to use your best tool at your disposal, which would be your cabin here. If you watched my previous guides, you would know that as you add on structural HP, your cabin's HP will increase. Therefore, we can use this to our advantage by start mounting our weapons behind our cabin, which would very well hide our weapon from our enemies. Like, as you see here, almost, or actually, 1/2 of the entire whirl is covered by the cabin here. And you can basically apply this to any weapon you want. You can use like shotguns, I think. Yeah, like you can hide them 1 pin behind. The only disadvantage to this really would be that you would need to start to lean your builds, I guess, if you want to shoot this way from forward, because the guns would lose a bunch of firing angles on the downward side, unless you don't mind having like dogs or melees just hugging your face. It does get to a point though where it starts to become disadvantageous to start mounting your guns behind your cabin and using your cabin as armor in this way, because for one, like in this specific example, the Yokozuna cabin has a drone hole at the top where it needs to launch drones out, and if you plan on armoring your whirls in the front here with any sort of structure, which I'm about to highly advise that you would, the drone wouldn't be able to spread to your teammates or any of that sort. And not to mention that the firing angles on this is very terrible. Like, you can't really hit anyone in front of you for that matter, and also the guns start to get caught on the cabin like this, and you can't automatically shoot, which would probably cause your death in the heat of battle. Like I mentioned before, it is imperative that you armor in between your guns as well. Like, this is a great start for armoring your guns because in this situation the therm is 3 pins tall and has very low or quite low durability, so you want to hide as much of the gun as possible. And how I like to armor in between the guns is just adding any structure piece that won't block the angle of the gun too much while providing decent protection, such as this. Like, you can still shoot to the left and the right. Up, down isn't terrible. Like, you can just get creative with it and add your own things. See here, moving forward would give your gun some better angles and such. This is not the best example because the gun straight locks down, but I hope you guys get what I mean by this. A very common armoring technique I like to use for armored cars is actually mounting the weapon on the side of the cabin, because as you can see here, it's impossible to get the gun on one side. Like, say your enemy is shooting at you from the right side, the left side, they won't be able to fully de-gun you as you have both of your guns on either side of the cabin, and just this giant brick is just blocking any sort of damage type to pass through to the other side. And obviously this comes with its disadvantages as well. Like, as you can probably tell, you won't be able to shoot a person that is on your right of your build or someone to your left. Like, your center attack wouldn't be that great. Like, if you can see, there's just this dead zone in front of me where I can't really focus my enemies that well. Now, this is sort of a more advanced building technique, but you could also change your playstyle based on how your guns are orientated. Like, in this situation, I have a nuisance car here that just drives around, does like 1,000 damage maybe, and then just leaves. Like, this is a very real playstyle you can use, like with the guns just hanging out in the open. That gives you the most versatile firing angles. If you're driving straight at someone, you can still shoot at them. On the side is fine, and you're really only lacking on diagonal, but this is one of the least common angles you'll find yourself at if you're positioning very well. And how I would armor this is actually just doing some light, or if you're on the heavier side, you can just spam structure on the diagonal axes here. So if you see where my mouse is aiming here, this line is where your guns wouldn't be able to shoot anyways, because the guns are blocking each other. You can just start tacking on a bunch of armor, and it wouldn't really do anything other than adding extra durability. Like, they have to dig through this and this to finally get through your guns, like on the diagonal end. And although this is strong, the disadvantage to this is that, yeah, your guns are just hanging out in the open, and it's relatively easy to get degunned compared to the other build techniques I previously showed. And it's not just in instances where you have multiple guns where you need to armor. Like, say here where you have a giant avalanche, it can only shoot out of this tiny barrel here, so it is strongly advised that you armor the front of it and places where it wouldn't be able to shoot. Like, you can safely armor around the barrel and it wouldn't conflict with anything, but add like extra durability to your gun here. Like, this is, they have to get through this to get to your gun, is what I'm saying. And this is very crucial for not getting instantly degunned by like a random scorp shot across the map. Unfortunately, this is all I have for you guys today. If you guys have any more ideas or any concepts you would like to be reviewed, please comment. I do read the comments, and I would probably put them in my next video. Thank you.